shoot. I think I screwed that up. Screwed that up. Screwed that up. Dang it! Well, I screwed that up. As with any of these projects, my guy's got to be ready to fail. So, my name is Luke Brown, and I try to learn something new every single week, and this week I'm trying to learn how to make a leather book cover. Learning how to do a little leather work this week. I bought this leather kit about 4 years ago now. Tried making a book cover and it failed miserably. Here is the book cover I tried making. Leather is kind of expensive, and I immediately failed on this project, and so I just quit. So what I'm going to do today is find out what's in here and try to make something new. I want to make a book cover. My wife has this journal, this Moleskin journal, and I would like to make a book cover for her. I told her about this project. She thinks I'm making a book cover for myself, but you know, I'm just a great guy, so I'm going to make one for her instead. Whoa! A big piece of granite, polishing cloth, hole punch, thread for sewing, beeswax for polishing the edges, cotton swab things, a couple of other little tools here that I'm not familiar with, more things. I kind of lost motivation for this project after I screwed something up. I wasn't really willing to try to fail again, especially with how expensive leather was. I've come to realize that a guy can't live scared of failure, so we're going to give this another try. First thing we need to do is get some leather. Is that a tail? Huh, weird. So this piece of leather I got here is a single shoulder, and its weight is 4 or 5 ounces. Ounces is the thickness of the leather, so the higher the ounce, the thicker the leather is. So this is, I think, kind of ideal for a book cover, at least in my eyes. Thin enough to be malleable and work with, and thick enough to be durable. Really, all there is to do now is measure out our Moleskin book and get to it. I did find some patterns online, but there are a bunch of different ones that, I don't know, I like the look of some of them, but I think I'm just gonna kind of make my own, free-spirited, come up with my own. I need to get the measurements of this notebook. So obviously what I need to do is take these measurements and lengthen them a little bit so that there's some clearance around the edges of the journal. So I'm probably going to take all the measurements and just add a 1/4 inch to them. So I think all we got to do is get the leather and cut it out and go from there. Plenty of leather. I'd rather start with a little too much than too little, and then if you start out with too little, the project's probably ruined, so I'm going to start with a little more and hope for the best. Grab a cutting board from the kitchen so that I don't, cut a hole in my desk. So I'm going to line it up with my metal ruler so that I know that my blade will stay perfectly straight along that edge. Before I start on the real project, what I'm going to do is take this piece of scrap leather and just try out some different stuff on it. Tooling, which is kind of engraving in a design. I'm going to try some wood burn, like a little wood burner on it. I'm going to try the different stains that I have for the leather, just so that I don't ruin like the good piece of leather. So before you tool anything, you got to get the leather wet, I read, so that's what I'm doing right now. So this was by far the most helpful part of this entire project. I basically took all the tools that I had and just experimented with them on this piece of scrap leather. I tried out the wood burning tool. It worked really well. I found out that if you use too high a heat, it will buckle the leather. So try to use a low heat if you do that. I got most of the information on the tools from a book called Basic Leather Crafting, and I'll have a link to that on Amazon. And I found out that with tooling, this blade is the only tool I have, and you need like a lot of different tools. So I didn't really want to invest in that for that project, so I decided not to do much tooling on this project. I learned that these various tools are for getting edges down, for getting a trail to lay thread in when you do sewing. Another thing I learned is that this tool came with a punch set and a rivet and button setting tool. So what I did was I just experimented by putting buttons into this piece of scrap leather, and it actually worked really well. Last, I just outlined a cross, which I had planned on putting on the front of my wife's journal cover, and etched that in, burned it in, and I also took the different stains that I had and tried all of them on this. So now I just have this piece of scrap leather with everything on it. So my recommendation is don't move on to your real project until you kind of have the confidence built in some of these tools and the different things you'll need, just so that you don't mess up your main project. Okay, so my wife just went to bed, and I kind of had a really tricky way of finding out what she might want on this journal cover. So what I did was I took and sketched out a few different crosses and told her this is what I'm thinking of putting on it, and asked her like which one was your favorite. She picked the Celtic cross, and then I took my piece of scrap leather and asked her, which I like this color, which color do you like? And she picked the really dark brown color, so that's the color we're going to be going with. So I am going to get started on that first thing tomorrow morning as soon as she leaves. So I'll see you tomorrow. After my wife went to bed last night, I grabbed a pencil and a ruler and I sketched out a Celtic cross, trying to get all the measurements just right. I found out a pencil doesn't work super well, but it makes just enough of a line to where I could see what I was doing. Then I took my wood burner, burned it in on a low temperature so that the leather wouldn't wrinkle up, and I think it turned out pretty nice. I also engraved in my wife's favorite scripture passage underneath the cross, which is from 2 Corinthians. After that, I cut out 2 rectangles of leather, which will be glued on the inside of the cover to hold the book cover onto the Moleskin book. The hard cover sections will go underneath these flaps to hold it on. I tried to cut those out as accurate as I could, and then I used rubber cement to glue them on there. I put down some wax paper just so that I wouldn't get any rubber cement onto my desk. I screwed up. I wanted the cross and everything to be on the front cover, right? Well, I just realized that this is the back cover of the book. So I put all that work into just putting something on the back cover of the book. It's fine. I'll just write her name down here on the front, and it'll still look really nice, but kind of disappointing. So now I'm just waiting for the glue to dry. I'm going to call it a night and get started on this again tomorrow. But yeah, it's coming along pretty well. All right, so it is the next morning. My wife is finally gone. I mean that in a good way, so I can work on this. I love her very much. And while I'm waiting for this other piece to dry that I glued this morning, I'm going to try practice sewing on this piece of scrap leather to make sure I have the spacing right, to learn how to sew pretty much. I don't really know how to sew leather, so. All right, so this needle's too small, and I don't have any other thread. Maybe I have some other needles. All right, so I don't have any more needles. So that means it's time for the third trip to Tandy's. Got him. If you're not familiar, this is called a sewing horse. All it does is clamps in the leather up here so that you can kind of get some good sewing going on it. It's nice and smooth, and yeah, it seems pretty good. I'm happy with that. So when watching videos of people making book covers, I found out that a good tip is to get the back book binding of it nice and soft so that it curves around the edge of the book by thinning out the leather. I used this shaving tool for a bit and then used this other tool to scrape out a couple of lines to make the leather a little thinner so it'll bend better. Now all I decided to do was to stain the leather book cover, and I kind of made a mistake. I stained it a different color first for the back. I thought that would look kind of cool, but I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that now. So I just gave it a couple coats of stain, and I found out that this compass thing is actually for marking out where you want your thread line to go. So I attached this strap to the back so that it could have a button close on the front of the cover, and marked out the threads with the compass, and then there's this little pitchfork type tool that you hammer in, and it puts all the thread holes in it for you. Then, using the instructions I found earlier, I simply threaded that back strap on and sewed it on tight. I repeated this process all the way around the edge of the book cover, and I know that you only have to sew the pieces that you want to stick, but to make it look better, I decided to thread it all the way around, no matter if there was anything to attach or not. To finish off a line of sewing, I found out all I have to do is cut the threads off and then use a lighter to melt the ends of the string so that they don't go back through. To get the edges around the journal smooth, they're kind of sharp, the leather is actually. So to get them smooth, I used this little edging type tool and very light grain sandpaper and just got them nice and round and smooth. Then it was time to move on to the leather strap that holds the journal shut. And so I punched a hole in to put a button in, and this is where I made a little mistake. I punched through both layers of the leather that are meant to hold the book in and put a button through before realizing, well, now the book cover can't go through. So I had to kind of pry that out of there and reset it through the inside. Now it's simply time for the finishing touches, which is really exciting. So all I did was the edges that are not stained yet, I took the stain and rubbed it all around the outside. Okay, I just found a big mistake I made. Any place that rubber cement has touched, the stain does not permeate the leather. So all these white spots are because the rubber cement leaked out. So I'm going to try rubbing some sandpaper on them and see if I can't get them to stain better. Okay, so that did work, but the only problem is that the edges where the pieces are glued together, I can't get it scraped out of there, so the edges still don't look perfect. Also, the places I did sand have these kind of dark scratched places. Since it is really dark stain, it's not really that noticeable, but I will remember that in the future for sure. So the last step is called burnishing, which is making the edges round and smooth. All you do is you rub beeswax along the edges, and then you use this tool called a slicker that has different size notches in the end, and rub that up and down the edge as much as you can, and that kind of melts the wax, I think, around the outside and just makes it really nice and smooth. Last step is simply adding a layer of leather conditioner to seal the leather. Alright, let's see if this fits in there. It's a tight fit. Man, if I would have made this any smaller, it probably wouldn't have fit in there.
We have the same taste in words. Okay, should we get a drink? I buy. I don't want you to think I'm after you for your money.
George Michael was thrown by what was clearly...
Traffic is unbelievable. We got a light aircraft.
Hey, but it's not animals. You know, maybe we'll do this in a...
Alright, I think you got her done.
Yeah?
Yeah, you want to see it?
I do. Ooh. Wow. Yeah, that looks really nice. Cool. Oh, honey. Thank you.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, I really do.
I promise I didn't read your journal.
Thank you.
Yep. I think this was my most interesting and fun project to date. This was a lot of fun to do. I know that there are a few obvious mistakes, but for a first attempt, I'm really happy with how this turned out. This was really cool. My wife loves this. I gave it to her 2 days ago now. She said that it's a very good gift. I'm really happy with her reaction to it. And working with leather is something I've always wanted to do. I finally did it, and it was a ton of fun. As usual, if you guys have ever tried this, let me know how it turned out. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, consider subscribing, sharing it. So what I'm going to do, we just hit a milestone on this channel, which I'm really excited about. On Saturday, we hit 100 subscribers. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a giveaway. I found a website that handles giveaways so that you all know it's fair and everything. So on March 24th, 2 weeks from the day we hit 100 subscribers, one of these to one lucky subscriber. So like this video, share it, and subscribe, and you are automatically entered in the giveaway. I will mail you one of these book covers. I'll get the color you want. If you want something burned into the front like I did on this one. And yeah, thank you so much again for 100 subscribers. It's really exciting. I'm honored and humbled that anybody would want to watch these videos. So thank you. So until the next video, I'll see you next week.